Nice to meet you. My name is Elad. I'm the VP Europe for Alison.ai. I'm going to take you in the next 40 minutes through why we think creative is the most important thing, how we're looking at creative, and we're going to also have a fireside chat with Valentyna from Bonial, who is we're privileged to work with, and she's going to take us through how big brands and agencies and apps are thinking about creative. We're going to cover performance marketing, what's going to happen in 2026. We're going to talk about why creative is the most important thing. Then we're going to talk about creative DNA and how we can understand every part of creative and why it's important for performance marketing, how we're doing data-driven storytelling, and then we're going to hear from Bonial and how they are doing things. This is me over, I think, 12, 13 years ago when I just joined Meta. I've been there for 12 years. And I remember that we introduced mobile advertising first. And this is me in one of the first events that we had to convince marketers why mobile is important. And back then, who knows what was the call for fame for Meta when it came to marketing? What? No, it was demographics. It was the fact that you can actually target specific people. But I think we're all now in a situation where demographics and targeting are less important. I want to show you a video from the head of auction analytics at Meta. And in 40 seconds, you will understand how Meta think about targeting and demographics now and what is the most important thing. So check it out.
So this is where we get to this idea that creative is the new targeting. Targeting is not the thing that's going to give you that competitive edge anymore. It is really all about how your creative shows up on our platforms, how creative you can be, that is going to give you that performance edge. And in fact, creative is often the most important factor when it comes to predicting the audience your ad will reach and the price that you pay for that ad. Over 56% of auction outcomes can be attributed to creative. I actually think it's a little higher than this these days. And the thing is, we don't need the army of data scientists anymore. We need to be creative.
So I think that's a very bold statement. We don't need the army of data scientists anymore. We need to be creative. And you're going to hear the same thing from people at TikTok and Google and any other ad network. Targeting, the way that we know it, is dead. And creative is the most important thing. So we're going to look at what's going to be the most important thing in 2026. Who know who's this lovely lady? Andromeda. So Andromeda became, for some people in this room, the biggest threat or the biggest opportunity. Andromeda, for those who don't know, it's the new update for Meta algorithm, where eventually Meta message is very clear for all of the advertisers. It's all about creative. And Meta are following Google that have done the same thing 3 years ago and TikTok that done it 2 years ago. So yeah, creative is the most important thing. And if I'm looking at what's going to come in 2026, targeting is shifting. Creative is the center of everything. So forget about targeting, forget about keywords, invest in creative. The next thing that is going to master 2026 is the fact that everyone can create content. It's easy to create content. It was never easier. Think about like what happened 4 months ago where you couldn't even generate someone with AI without 6 fingers and how fast it shifted. And it's going to be even stronger in 2026. Everyone can create it, but I'm not sure that everyone will know how to create the right creative. And that's going to lead us into creative blindness. We're going to see a lot of brands and a lot of agencies and a lot of apps creating a lot of creatives, but they won't know what's working, and we're going to see a lot of confusion. And the last thing is the operation gap. It's the fact that a lot of marketeers are still going to have their creative teams and their media teams. And the biggest mistake is that these two teams won't work together. And today, they must work together, and we're going to talk about it. So these are our projections for 2026. And let's talk about what app marketing teams will need for 2026. They will need clarity, they will need data and intelligence, and they will need collaboration. And I'm going to explain why. Let's start with clarity. There are a lot of researchers that talk about the fact that over 80% of agencies and close to 80% of brands talk about the fact that tight, clear brief is the most important thing when it comes to predicting success of creative. So define what you want to achieve is extremely important. Campaigns with high clarity briefs delivers 20% more in ROAS. This is a research by McKinsey. And teams using standardized brief are reporting strong creative performance. So having clarity, know what you want to achieve from your creative, not only create creatives just for the sake of creating them, is extremely important, and it will impact ROAS and performance. Let's go into creative intelligence. So we know today that teams try to understand what really drives performance, and they test on average between 3 to 4 elements per quarter. It's not enough. We also know that 90% of A/B testing fail. They isolate one thing, but they don't answer the rest of the things. And we know that 42% of media spend underperform because they don't have creative insights. So teams will need intelligence. And this is how we see creative flow today. It starts with exploration, defining what you want to do, visualizing, creating, launching, and evaluating. But the problem is, this is very simple, but the problem is that different teams doing different parts of this cycle. BI is doing the exploration, creative is doing the definition and visualization and creation, media is doing the launch and evaluation, and they're not working together. So we must ensure that next year, creative teams and media teams working as close as possible. At the moment, it's very bleak. Only 40% of marketeers say that creative teams and media teams working together. It's a very low number. And we know that once it's working together, results are much, much, much more stronger. So if I'm coming back to what we need to achieve in order to win in 2026, it's clarity, it's data and intelligence, and it's collaboration. And the next wave of mobile app won't come from targeting or media tricks. It will come from creative. And this is what we do at Alison.ai. We took a mission to identify the creative DNA. And like in any DNA, we want to break creative to as many pieces as possible and understand what really drives performance from a data point of view, to give you this clarity, to give you this intelligence, and to make sure that teams, doesn't matter if they're creative or media or BI or CMO or sales, working together and understanding what drives performance. And this is how we do it. Step one, we're starting with breaking every creative into thousands of different elements, and I'm going to show you a few examples, but thousands of different elements. Not one, not 5, thousands. After that, we're starting to map every element into media KPI. and understand how things like number of scenes, colors, visual. I even saw this week one of our clients, the brands that we are working with, we analyzed the angle of the camera, how these things are impacting things like CPI, cost per view, ROAS. We can do that. The third part is to predict, to understand how these elements will perform, and if we'll change something, add something, remove something, how we can improve any media KPI. Step 4, competitors. So we now have the technology to understand exactly what competitors are doing and start to compare apples to apples and see what they're doing, still with pride, differentiate ourselves. And the last step is create, but create with intelligence, not just create for the sake of creating videos. We trained our models of over 2 million creatives that we've analyzed on 15 verticals, and we've identified over 12 billion tags. And we're just beginning, and we are very much proud of our accuracy and are confident to understand exactly what's happening in a creative. So let's start with step 1. Every time that Alison starts working with a brand, we're starting by scanning everything. And we can understand things like value proposition, colors, influencers, sounds, number of scenes, facial expression, transition phase, logo position, environment, concept, atmosphere. Some of them are small things, but actually you would be amazed by how even moving the logo from the right-hand side to the left-hand side is making a difference. How having device or 2 device or 3 device or no device at all making an impact, and even number of scenes. 3 scenes, 1 scene, 2 scenes, all of these things we can measure, we can understand, and we are seeing the amazing correlation between that and any media KPI. And then we're starting to do the correlations. This is an example from our system. And you can see that we can be very much granular. We can understand the game mode or the graphics style or even the hand type. Is it a graphic hand or a cartoon hand? If the app interface is included or not included, if you can see the device, don't see the device. And you can see how every one of the metrics, and again, the report is much more longer. I'm always saying that if you don't like data, don't work with us, but if you do like data, it's heaven. You can see how that impacting media KPI and the leading KPI. In that case, it's CPI. And it's amazing how all of these elements have a direct impact on CPI, completion, CPA, video views, etc. We can see all of this stuff. The next part is to understand how different filtering and different ways of thinking about creative are impacting. I was at Meta, as I said before, and when we were at Meta and we wanted to convince people that were doing TikTok to do Reels, we told them that they should take their TikTok and use them as Reels. Bad advice. It's a very bad advice because if something is working on one platform, I can guarantee that it wouldn't work on the other. And it's very simple. Meta algorithm is different from TikTok algorithm, is different from Google algorithm. The audience is different. And if something is working excellently in one platform, do iterations and understand the other platform. The reason is that you want to make sure that you're having more auction opportunities. So try to analyze creative, understand what drives performance, and then start to understand how that different between different platforms. And that's not the end of it. You can do the same filtering with platforms, as I said, but with audience. Creative metrics that work on prospecting audience wouldn't be similar to current customers or to churn customers. Break it down by media objectives. elements that will drive CPI wouldn't necessarily drive video views and vice versa. And goals. If you're looking for leads or ROAS or installs, so we can really drill down and understand how creative is impacting any one of these elements. And then the next part is iteration. So we can do zoom in into specific creative, and this is where we're telling brands that are working with us or apps, look at your top 5 hero creatives, and we can do an analysis into specific things that you can change in this creative and project with very specific percentages how all of these iterations will impact your leading KPI. For example, here, the scene pace, if you'll change it from high to medium, it will have X amount of impact on your performance. So we can tell you creative by creative how it will have an impact. And the last one is competitor analysis. So competitor analysis, you can choose around 5 competitors and we can scan their creatives. We don't have access to their success metrics, but we can see what they're using and what they're not using, what you are not using that they are using. And we can start comparing it apples to apples. And this is where you can have an understanding into what's happening, steal with pride, or differentiate yourself. Extremely important, and sometimes our partners are a little bit too obsessed with that, but I can understand why. And the last part, which we introduced last month, is the ability to create videos with all of the secret ingredients that are actually driving performance. So it's not only generating video with a simple prompt, it's generating video with all of the data points that we know that makes creative successful. And you can also add things that you stole from competitors, but eventually we're now able to create videos with confidence. So if I'm summarizing it, we're starting with breaking creative into all of these elements, understand how they're impacting media KPI, predicting how any changes will drive performance, competitor analysis, and then moving to create with intelligence. I'm gonna invite Valentyna in a second to the stage with me because I have a lot of questions on how they're doing it. I'm very happy to have Valentyna from Bonial. And is it working?
I don't know. Can you hear me? Yes. Amazing.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's start with the introduction. Yes, please.
So hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I'm very excited. My name is Valentyna Koenig. I'm mobile marketing manager at Bonial. I'm responsible for campaign management and optimization for Kaufda. Kaufda helps to find users great deals and offers from the nearby stores while helping retailers to connect with millions of users looking to save money on their daily shopping. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for coming over. Let's start. So I shared my predictions for 2026, but I'm not on the client side. So what are your kind of like predictions from where you're sitting? What will keep you awake at night in 2026?
Yeah, for sure. As performance marketer, I would say it's CPI, right? Because we all want to have the best CPI, keep our spend under control while staying competitive. Another thing, creatives, which constantly need to be optimized. And then for sure, also the balance between acquisition and engagement, because we want to attract those users who find the value in our app and keep coming back using it.
Can you actually, I know it's a big pain point, can you take us through acquisition versus engagement? Because I think for years this industry was after acquisition, and now over the past few years there is a massive shift.
Yes, sure, because people get more and more apps and they like download them, they forget about them and never come back. And acquisition versus engagement means you really get the users who come back to the app and make in-app events, also generate revenue and coming back, so retention.
So I started the presentation with this statement that we're hearing from Meta and Google and TikTok that creative is the new targeting, creative is the new optimization. We are saying that because we have like an interest of saying that. But is it true?
I agree with you.
Okay.
I literally
Thank you.
agree with you because first of all, we all know that since ATT release iOS 14, targeting is difficult, right? Another point, I recently read that there are around 16,000 videos are being published every minute on TikTok, right? So the amount of content as an advertiser, you really need to stand out from this amount that people pay attention to you. And last but not least, I believe people are not only data metrics and data points, they are way more complex with their wishes, interests, and moods, and a good creative speaks to that. So it's not about who you target, but how do you connect with those people through your creatives.
And can you share like an example where you saw creative that was attracting audiences versus targeting?
What do you mean?
Like sometimes that you saw that actually you run broad, but creative brought like a specific audience?
Let me think about it. I would say it's, like when you are trying something new and maybe the creative's less generic, but like you have this idea when you're creating these creatives, this creative is gonna bring specific audience. Yes, then it works because those audience literally then come to the app and install the app and keep coming and using it.
So with creative, you need to find like the point that will actually engage people.
What can you repeat?
Yeah, no. Like with the creative, you need to find like the hook that will eventually bring.
Yeah, exactly.
people.
And that's about constant testing. So it's testing, analyzing, testing again, and analyzing. There is no magic recipe forever. You need constantly test, repeat, and learn about your audience and creatives.
So we are lucky to work with Bonial for the past year. What made you invest in creative analytics in Alison? Like, what was the reason?
Because it was something new for us. Like previously, our insights were mainly based on the experience of our managers and of our design team, but they were not always backed up with data, like 200%. For sure, we have data which we collect during our analysis, but it was never like 100%. And then we saw your tool and we were thinking like, oh, that looks really interesting. Let's give it a try. Because creative is a new targeting. Let's give it a try. Let's invest time, money in it, and see what's gonna happen.
Who's using Alison in Bonial?
Mostly it's our mobile marketing managers, but also our senior designer was participating during the sessions, and later on he shared the insights with our design team, so that helps a lot. But I think it's also an amazing tool for creative strategists. Like when you analyze something and you're preparing for a new creative strategy, it's also an amazing tool.
They're not afraid?
Sorry?
They're not afraid to have all of this data. Until now, they were like doing amazing creative. They're not afraid to have like the data and all of the numbers thrown at them?
No, not at all. I mean, it helps also the way how you present those data, right? It's not that you through some numbers on our table and we need to translate those numbers, but the way how you present those data, very good clustered, very good structured. They are basically ready to use and you can take them and put into your briefings. So it's ready to use. You don't need to translate them again and again. In the case when you get, for example, a huge data report from the data or analytical team.
We're in a circle of trust. Are you using the competitor analysis?
Yes. I told you also.
What do you do with that?
Yeah, I told you also before that that's my favorite feature because I hate this constant scrolling through the ad libraries, especially like Meta ad library, where you're sitting and like scrolling through this endless amount of competitors. Then you need to go to each creative and have a look on it. And with Alison.ai, it was like super easy. We selected those competitors we would like to have a look on. And then we were not only able to see those creatives, but also to see them structured in the way with those dimensions, like how the logo is placed, what type of background it has, or is it filmed inside or outside, or is there a human in this video or not? So I guess it's my favorite feature also.
Yeah, it's always great to see what's happening outside. And last question, then we'll open that for a few questions. How do you, we spoke about engagement, how you make sure in your creative that you are attracting high value customers?
It's a good question because we are running mobile apps, so we are really limited with the space. You see like this tiny screens and then the content and then somewhere your ad. First of all, we need to ensure that the message is short and sharp enough for people to understand immediately what we are about. But we also need to be sure that we differentiate ourselves from the retailers because we are doing advertising with offers and that people not get annoyed and think that they can order those things in our app, but we are just informing them about the offers. And it's about testing. So analyzing, testing, and repeat.
Constantly repeat.
Constantly repeat.
Constantly
yes.
repeat.